Welcome to Module 4 of the QuickBooks Accounting Software training. In this module, we're going to look at setting up budgets. My name is LilianKatiso. I'm a financial management consultant and QuickBooks trainer. In Module 4, we're going to look at defining budgeting parameters. What we mean by this is defining how you're going to set up your budgets to track the different areas of your business so that you can see how they are performing. And in defining the budget parameters, of course, you have to consider the industry you are in, the nature of your business, and what influences a lot of that in the budget parameter setting is your chart of accounts. And we already previously talked about the budget or the chart of accounts, and the chart of accounts is going to be the backbone of your budget tracking in QuickBooks. And also, we're going to look at the segments that you set up in QuickBooks, which you call classes. So this is your cost centers, your profit centers, or your departments, whatever strategic business units you want to track separately to see their performance independently of the whole organization. Those are your classes. And we're going to take you through how to input the budget in the system so that you're able then to query reports and see how your budget is performing. So I'm going to share my QuickBooks screen so that I take you through the step-by-step process of this. So you're familiar with this page, the home page, where we start most of the transactions from. And as I've said, one of the key things to defining your budget parameters is the chart of accounts. And on the home page, on the right-hand side of the home page, you can see the chart of accounts icon, okay? So this is where you click to go to the chart of accounts. But you can also go to up on your toolbar. On your toolbar, you can find under company. If you scroll down under company, there is the chart of accounts on the drop down for company. That's another place you can get the chart of accounts from. But on your left-hand side, also the topmost under lists, you can also see chart of accounts from there. Now, when you go to the chart of accounts, this is what defines how your reporting structure for your financial statements is going to be, okay? So it's very important how you lay it out, how you classify or categorize the different things in your chart of accounts, okay? How you put sub-accounts of them. For example, under fixed assets, you have the sub-accounts, the finer details of what makes fixed assets, and that's how you do with all the other different categories. So in QuickBooks, the chart of accounts is arranged. You can filter or sort it by type. In this case, I've sorted by type, and it's giving me the balance sheet items first. Of course, you can see the asset-related ones first, then it goes to the payables, other liabilities, and equity. It's followed by income accounts and the cost of sales account or cost of goods sold account, and your expenses following through. On the right-hand side of the chart of accounts gives you the balances as per your balance sheet, okay? So this is how your chart of accounts is laid out. Of course, there's a column for currency. If you have multi-currency, it will show you the different accounts that you have in the different currencies that you have. So this chart of accounts has to be defined appropriate for your business before you start inputting your budgets, because these items here of the chart of accounts, okay, for example, your sales accounts, the different cost of goods sold account, your expense accounts, these are the ones that are going to mirror on the budget window. So for you to feed in the budgets for tracking how each of them perform. So that was one of the parameters, the chart of accounts. The second parameter to consider in budgeting is your class list. The class list, we defined it as your cost center or profit center or your segment or your department, whatever you consider as your strategic business unit for you to track both the revenues and expenses to it. That one is what QuickBooks called as classes. So for the file that we are using as a sample file, the classes that we have, because it's an auto parts business, so it has things, sales related with cars, domestic sales, import sales, insurance claims, office, which is mainly administrative costs. So there might not be revenues to this particular class, by just tracking the expenses that cut across all the other different departments or different segments. There's a parts segment and the service segment. So you're going to see, we're going to have a practice on how to post the budget for the office and the budget for one of the departments, which is the service department, so that you see how it flows through and how it can be consolidated for you to see the business performance as a whole. To get onto the budget, you come to the company tab. Under the company tab, you scroll down and you're going to see budgeting and planning and budgeting. You click on setup budgets. Now, once you click on setup budgets, it brings you this window, of which, of course, you're seeing is a drop down of your chart of accounts. Your chart of accounts is what has been uplifted to be put here. And that's why I'm saying it's very, very important for you to have fine-tuned your chart of accounts before you go into the budget. Then you go on the right-hand side, you're seeing this icon for create new budget. So that's what you're going to do. Click create new budget. And when you're setting up a new budget, you have to say which financial year you're setting the budget for. In this case, the data set we're looking at is 2022. And so when you scroll down, you go to 2022. If you scroll up, 2023. So you're going to set up a budget for 2022. Then you have to choose the type of budget you want to look at. Profit and loss budget means it is an activity-based budget. It reflects the activities for the whole year. So your income lines and your expense lines is what is going to be reflected there. Rarely do I see people using the budget option for balance sheet, but it's also an option where you look at your balance sheet accounts and budget for those ones. But I'm going to follow through an example of the profit and loss based budget type, because that is the one that is most common for most businesses. The next thing you have to do is to choose the additional criteria for your budget input. When you say no additional criteria, what it does, it gives you your chart of accounts as the basis for you to input your budget. But if you want to go to the next level and say track the performance, or do you have a budget to input for a particular project, you choose the customer job and input the budget for that particular project that you want to budget for. The other alternative, of course, criteria is class, and that is what you're going to use. So class is defining your business segment or your cost center, or your profit center, and you can put a budget for each of them so that you can see, I gave a target for this department, this, or this class, this, and this is how it's performing against the actual. So we're going to choose the criteria, additional criteria to our budgeting, additional to the chart of accounts is class, and I'm going to click on next. Okay, so when you click finish, it's going to bring the template for us to feed in the budget, and we start inputting it. So this is the window for budgeting, okay? Now, at this point, you have to choose which budget you're going to go at. And I'm going to do the service budget, for example. Now, when you choose the service budget, I'm assuming that you have already you have a budget spreadsheet that you're working with, okay? So that budget spreadsheet allows you to feed in the figure from your spreadsheet to here in QuickBooks. So let's say for the service department, our sales target for the service department, you can choose to type in every month's performance. So for example, you say we are targeting that for the sales department, we are going to be able to make how much? Let's say $20,000 per month, okay? So I have an option of typing 20,000 per month all across, or QuickBooks has an option here of putting $20,000, and you click on copy across, and it populates the whole $20,000 budget for you, okay? Now, so there's a sales income that you can put in there, and you're saying our targeted sales income per month is 20,000, and therefore for the annual total is 240,000. The cost of these sales, assuming the cost of these sales is, let's say, how much? $12,000, okay, per month. I can copy across, and then it gives me what the total for that particular month is, okay? So we assume that for this particular department, what we're tracking is the sales and the cost of sales for that department, and then I'm going to click save. When you click save, it means you're capturing that data so that it is not lost. If you don't click save and you just click OK, the data is going to disappear, and you have to re-input it again. So I've set up for the service department. Let me set up for the, I set up for which one? Let me set up for import department as well. So we have some targets for import. So let's say we are targeting imports. We're going to get like, let's say import, we're going to get more. And okay, so assuming that also you have your budget consolidated, that's another approach to it. So instead of putting the figure per month, so you have a consolidated figure for the whole year and you want to break it down per month. Okay, so in this case, for example, we say we have $300,000 as our target for revenues for the year for import. What I can do is I put a cursor there where the cursor is, I put the division sign, okay, from the keyboard, and then you divide by 12. That gives you what your monthly target, therefore, is supposed to be. And you copy across and you multiply that by 12. And what it does, it gives you the total of your annual projection. Now, I assume the cost of sales for this one will be maybe $15,000 per month. Okay, I can copy across that as well. And I have my cost of sales for the import department. And remember to click save. Now let's set up budget for the office. Now office, because it's an administrative function, doesn't have revenue targets, but it has expenses for running the office. Okay, so let's put in some expenses for running the office. For example, we have bank service charges. So assume we have $10 a month for bank service charges. We copy that across. We have a business license to pay. And business licenses is not something that you pay on a monthly basis. I assume it falls due in April, for example. We can put it in the month of April, $1,000, okay? So you map the different expenditures to the month in which you expect them to occur, so that when you're doing the budget various comparison, it is actually realistic to almost what is going to happen on the ground. Then we assume that we have some computer and internet expenses, maybe of $100 a month. I copy across that and I have 1,200. Assuming you take our staff for training, but we don't train them on a monthly basis, we take them for training, let's say, on a quarterly basis. So on a quarterly basis, that will be, let's say, you're taking them at $200 a quarter. So quarter one is January, the next quarter is April, and the other quarter is in July, and the other quarter is in October. So now it gives us the total of $800 in training, okay, that we are spending on staff training, but it doesn't occur every month. So we're just mapping it to the quarter, the period in which it occurs, okay? Now, if there, let me see which are the expenses we can put. Yes, so maybe there is insurance expense that we have to incur. And you say on a monthly basis, we have insurance expense. Okay, maybe you don't pay it on a monthly basis, and there's a particular period when your insurance dues occur. Maybe they occur actually only in January, and you're paying $1,000 in January. Of course, you have office expenses for running the office. And you can say for running the office, maybe we have an office expense of $1,000 a month. Okay, and I copy that across. We have we have printing and reproduction, for example. So we print some materials, and so let's assume it's 50. How do we put? Maybe put yeah, we can put $50 a month, our printing costs. And then we have some professional fees that we pay. And maybe we pay the auditors once a year, and maybe we pay them in December. And that's about $1,800. And then we pay rent, and maybe we pay rent. How much do we pay rent? Let's say we pay rent 1,000. What do? We pay rent maybe $1,000 a month. Copy that across. Okay, so this is just an example of how you can post the different expenses. You have some repairs and maintenance expenses. on a monthly basis. So maybe you have $200, you put that across. Or you have some telephone expenses, maybe $50 a month, you copy across. Okay. And then you have maybe some utilities or some travel expenses, maybe of $200 a month. Okay, so that's just an example. So now once you're done with this, you remember to save. Okay, once you've saved, now that's our budget. We're just entering those 3 examples and then we say, okay. Now we want to check that this budget that we put, can we compare with the spreadsheet that we had, for example, okay? So what you have to do is to go under reports and we go to what we call the budget overview. The budget overview gives you the total, the summary of the budget that you fed in the system, and then you compare that with what you have in your spreadsheet and check if there's any error. Is it tallying with what you wanted to feed or not? Now here you choose which budget that you want to pick. We want to budget for 2022. That's the data set that we're using for this file. And then you can choose to look at the budget on a monthly basis or per class. Let's choose per class. And then you click next and you finish. Okay, so now for the 3 segments that we looked at, so we have, let me just highlight this, so you can see it, okay? So you see now we have for import, okay? So we have import, we have a target of how much? Of 300,000 and the cost of sales of 120. I mean, of 180,000, which gives us a gross profit of 120,000. For office, there was no revenue target, but we have expenses, overhead expenses that are totaling to $35,000. And then we have the service segment, which has its projections. And then this is the total. So the total shows you what the total is for the entire business. And you can look and you see at the end of the day, you're projecting a profit of $180. Assuming that you don't want to share this report, I mean, in your business, you have budget holders. For import is a different budget holder from service, and you just want to get a report only for the budget holder for import. On the right-hand side, you go to Customize Report, you go to Filters, the tab for filters, and then click on Class, and then you choose the class that you want to have a look at. In this case, you want to look at which one? Import department, and you say, you click OK. In this case, it's just going to bring you the budget for the import department, okay? And then show you the budget for all the other classes. So that is how you can filter out a report and share it out to only the person that it is necessary to. You don't share the entire company department, okay? So assuming now you've fed in your budget and you want to see, it's that time of the month, you want to see how you're performing so far. So you still go through to budgets and forecast, and then you look at budget versus actual. When you look at budget versus actual, you can choose, okay, it's the budget for financial year 2022, and you can choose to look at it by month or by class. Okay, you can choose to look at the budget by class or by month. Let's look at it by month first. And you say next, and you say finish. So you want to see how you're performing each of the different months of the year. So for example, now it's showing in the month of January, okay, the targeted sales were 28,000. This is total for the entire organization, not by class, okay? And the budget was 45,000, which means we were under budget by $16,000. We only met 63% of our revenue target, okay, for that particular month. Then it proceeds on to the month of February, like that, like that. Now, instead of doing per month, you can say, let me just see how I'm performing the entire financial year, okay? I do the total. So when I do the total, it shows me from January to December, my actual is $520,000, of course, of which this is coming from sales, and this is from the service income. The total is $520,000. The target was, total target was $540,000, which means we were not able to meet our target by $19,000. We delivered on 96% of the target. So you go and you look at each of the different revenue or expenditure line one by one, and you see how you're performing against what you had planned for and against what you had budgeted for. So for example, you look and you see a professional fees, your budget was 1,800 and you spent exactly that. So it was 100% on budget. There are some times when you've not spent anything, so it's 0%, or when you have spent more than what you had budgeted for. So of course you have to have explanations why you have, but you've spent, for example, twice as much as what you had budgeted for. But this is how you do the budget monitoring report. Okay. So at the end of the day, you see that for that particular year, you have your actual surplus is 400 and profit is 407,000 vis-a-vis a budget of 180,000. Okay. So which means you actually exceeded your target. Now, when you look at this budget, of course, as management or as an accountant, you will end up to check why is that the variance? Is that variance realistic? If it's not realistic, you're going to check, was all the data completely entered in the system? Is there something that was missing? Is there some information that has not been posted in the system? So that is how you look and you analyze the budget and see if it does what? If it makes sense. And you can actually comment on the report. When you click here on comment on report, you can go to that particular one where there's a variance. Then you say, for example, office expenses. You say office expenses haven't what? Been posted, of course. Yeah, so you have to explain why. Is there a big variance on that particular one, that you had a budget for office expenses, but there is nothing that has been put there, okay? So that is how you can put there. No, I don't want to delete the comment. So that is how you can actually comment on the budget. Once you're done with commenting on the budget, you can actually save the budget, okay? So you can click on save to save the budget, and you choose where you want to save the budget. You can give it a name, budget for a particular month or for a particular year, okay? And then you say yes, so that you have your comments saved if you want to share it with another person. So that is budget versus actual report. But there's another report also, which is budget, what is called per budget, budget, profit and loss budget performance. Now this one looks at your budget, month by month, but also looking at the year-to-date performance, but also looks at the annual budget. So for example, assuming you are in the month of, let me say, we are in the month of July. So I come here and I change the date. Okay, you query the date to the month of July. So I am in the month of July. If I'm in the month of July, end of July, let me choose end of July. Okay, refresh this report. Now it's going to show me in the month of July, my target of revenue was $48,000. My budget was only $45,000. Now, January to July was $250,000. Again, it's a year to date. Year to date means January to July budget was $315,000. But now the annual budget, the full 12-month budget is $240,000. So you can see if you're on the right track, okay? If you're very far away from your target, and then it means that in July, you strategize how to improve on your performance before the year comes to an end. And of course, looking at the total, at the bottom here, your surplus or your profit for the period is $39,000. Again, it's a budget of $15,000, which means you're actually doing much better than your budgeted performance. In terms of actually you're exceeding the budgeted performance, okay? So this is how you look at the report and how you review the reports, okay? So now this is how you can analyze the budget reports. This is how you can analyze the budget reports. You can also still look at the budget. We look at the budget versus actual, but let's look at it by class because we looked at it by month. So by class, click on next, and here you choose by class. You want to see how each class is performing, and you say finish. Now, because here you end up having all the classes together, let's say you just want to look at the office. You want to see how the office is doing. You want to give the administrator the budget to give, what is it called? To check on their performance. You click on the class and you choose which class do you want to look at. You want to look at office. You don't want to look at all the departments. Yeah, so it just brings you only your performance for the office. And so it has the budget for the office, and it shows the budget for the office was 35,000. What has been spent is 40,000. So which means you've spent $4,000 above what had been planned to be spent for office. Okay. So this is how you can query budget for different purposes and for different uses. Now, I've seen some organizations that are in the middle of the year, you want to do a media review of your budget, and so you want to make some adjustments. You can still actually do that. You go back to the company window, and then you go to planning and budgeting, and you go to set up budgets. When you go to set up budgets, you go to that particular budget that you want to look at. So we are looking for the budget of 2022, and you choose which particular department you want to adjust. Maybe you want to adjust on office or any other, and you go and you just edit whatever you want to edit related to that particular budget, and just remember to save. Okay. So that is how you can look at your budget. You can look at them in different ways. You can look at the budget by class, okay? And here on the columns, when you're on this report, you can look at the budget by class. You can look at the budget by month, so that you're just seeing how each month is performing. You can look at the budget in totality and just look at the total, okay? So those are some of the ways you can query your budget and see how you're performing vis-a-vis what was planned. And remember, this one was a budget I'd looked for the class budget. So which means if you want to show all of them, you can come back here under customize report filters and class. You show all classes instead of office, and I show all classes, and you see, okay. And in that case, you have your entire budget for the year, January to December, the budget for that particular year, and the variance, okay? So QuickBooks is very time sensitive. Like, you have to choose the period of the report, and you make sure that the period of the report is what you're actually looking at, because the report that comes off depends on the period that you queried. So you have to be conscious of that. So this is a budget by total, and you can also do budget by class, okay? So there are different ways of getting that report from that window or from any other window, okay? So this is how you input the budgets. This is how you generate the budget reports. This is how you review the budgets. And we are going to go further into looking at reports later on in the upcoming modules. So this is it for module 4, budgeting and looking at how the budget is put in the system. So it's important, as you can see, the chart of accounts lines as what informs where the figures are input. So if you find in a situation where, for example, here there's a charitable donation, but there's no budget for it, it means there, of course, now this is a sample budget. You check, was it input? And that is why I'm saying, when you put in a budget, the first thing you have to do, go to the overview to check that your budget has completely been fed in the system before you actually start doing the budget analysis report. Thank you for watching module 4, and see you in the next module.